Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the March 26th Planning Board meeting. We're happy to have you all tonight. Since Mrs. Washington isn't here.
Mr. Barhoo?
Present.
Mr. Lee?
Present.
Mr. Robinson?
Present.
Mr. Servance?
Present.
Mr. Weatherholtz?
Here.
And Miss Washington is absent. You have a quorum.
We approval of the minutes.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve minutes as written. You had
What did we forget? Oh, you're just getting seated in?
Yeah. No, the minute says I was here.
Yeah, it's also missing the the adjournment time.
So the program that we use to put the minutes into right now, there's like a main screen that is in every minute of all of our, so it has to be adjusted, and we haven't gotten it adjusted yet. So that's why you see that you're here. But in the minutes, you are not here.
All right. I want to say I voted for something I didn't vote for.
So I make a
Because
motion
if you
we
guys
approve
notice,
minutes with changes.
the lady that was here before, she's still in there too. We have to get the city clerk to take those people out.
Josephine Callis, you mean?
Yes, that's
Okay,
her.
we'll do that. And then we'll make sure that this is all corrected, that Josephine won't be in
Right.
there and that
Right,
Milverton will not be,
There.
present.
Present.
There she is.
yeah, on McLean, yeah. We'll get that corrected. We'll find out what's going on with that software.
Okay. All right, I'm good.
Okay, so we had a motion, we second, now we just need to vote, right?
We'll let her sit down first.
Oh.
We have a second, and let me see, the approval of the minutes. Any
All
citizens?
those in favor?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 6-3, or 6-0. Any citizens that wish to address the board concerning items on the agenda, we ask that you fill out a green comment form. When you come to the lecture, please state your name, your address for the record. We will now move on to item 4A. Can we hear from staff? Oh, okay, somebody want to call it in?
Item number 4A, Florida Logistics Park Site Plan, DEV 2025-428, quasi judicial hearing.
Good afternoon. Emilio O'Brien, Senior Planner, City of Daytona Beach. I just want to identify a couple errors from the staff report. The first one being the project number. It's correct in this presentation, DEV 2025-428. I believe it was 248 in the staff report. My apologies. The second error is going to be in one of the future land use call-outs. It says in page 2, existing future land use tourist accommodations. That's incorrect. It's mixed use. It's actually listed in the table right there below as mixed use. So I just want to identify those two discrepancies. So again, this is item 4A, major site plan, Florida Logistics Center, phase 1 and 2. This is a request by Christopher Rowley, professional engineer of Zeb Cohen and Associates, Inc., on behalf of FLP40 LLC for approval of a major site plan to construct two one-story, 46-foot-high warehouse and distribution facilities totaling 305,550 square feet, including grading of areas designated for future development within the Florida Logistics Center Plan District and associated infrastructure. Phase 1 includes all improvements except the connection to the Walker's Green development south of the site, which will be completed in Phase 2. This is a location map of the site. It's generally located south of Bevel Road, west of Williamson Boulevard. future land use is mixed use. The zoning is Plan Development General. It is called the Florida Logistics Center Plan District. This is an aerial view of the site and the existing conditions. It's vacant with agricultural and grazing uses. So a little project background and description. History. In 2025, recently, a large-scale comprehensive plan amendment, map and text amendment were both approved. In that comp plan amendment, the entire property was redesignated to mixed use and development limits were established. Also, recently in 2025, the PD rezoning was approved for the Florida Logistics Center Plan District Agreement, which allowed development of a regional industrial park with supporting commercial uses, including certain waivers and LDC modifications. The total project area is 276.5 acres. Again, the future land use is mixed use. The max FAR under the mixed use designation is 3, and the proposed FAR for this site plan is 0.025. The zoning, again, is PDG, Plan Development General, Florida Logistics Center Plan District. The proposed warehouse storage and distribution use is a permitted use within the PD. The proposed development meets the PD's intensity and dimensional standards. Existing conditions. The subject site is bordered by South Williamson Boulevard to the east, I-95 to the west, the Walker's Green Plan District to the south, which is currently undeveloped and forested, and Andros Isles Apartments and Bevel Road to the north. The site contains a variety of forested and non-forested uplands and a variety of wetland systems, including approximately 56 acres of wetlands, 18.3 acres of surface waters, 202 acres of uplands. The entire property is within the floodplain. The applicant's proposal, they're proposing use of warehouse, storage, and distribution. There's 2 industrial buildings totaling 305,550 square feet, each 46 feet in height, which would be 1 story for these warehouse buildings. Phase two will include connection to the Walker's Green Plan District south of the site. The remaining area designated for future development will be graded and reserved for future commercial and industrial uses and designed under a separate cover. Continued for this proposal segment, the total area devoted to landscaping is 32.14 acres, and they have 3.2 acres of that as interior landscaping. The direct wetland impacts are 21.61 acres. The surface water impacts are 7.94 acres. Some important notes, the proposed wetland impacts were conceptually approved with the St. Johns River Water Management District. Most of the roads, parking, buildings, and infrastructure were proposed within the uplands. Approximately 50% of the wetland impacts for the overall development are associated with floodplain compensation and stormwater retention as required. So this table here breaks down the trees. That would be the existing trees on site and the proposed or provided trees based on this site plan. So there's, I don't know if I should get into each of these, but so there's 10,587 trees within the forested wetlands, comprise 35 acres approximately of the site. 12,577 trees are in the forested uplands, which comprises 67 acres of the site. And there's 804 specimen trees, excuse me, on site, and there were no historic trees found. So there are 433 of those specimen trees that are being preserved with this proposal, and 1,189 replacement trees are proposed. So the applicant decided to identify trees in the preservation area that were 2.5 inches or greater for mitigation purposes, and they found 8,430 trees that met that criteria. So of those 8,430 trees, 1,142 of those trees will be used towards mitigation for the specimen trees. Total tree canopy coverage for phases 1 and 2 is 25.4 acres. So parking breakdown, the ratios used for the warehouse, storage, and distribution use was 1.5 spaces per 1,000. That amounted to 458 spaces required. And the office retail area, 3.5 spaces per 1,000. That amounted to 18 spaces required. The total parking required for this site plan is 476 spaces. They provided 531 spaces, and they have a surplus of 55 spaces. This is the proposed site plan for the overall development. This is where phase 1 is generally located. This is where phase 2 is generally located. And this is where that future industrial office designated area is proposed. This is a close-up of phase 1. This is a close-up of phase 2. This is the connection to Walker's Green development to the south. And this is that area to be graded for future industrial and office uses. This is the architectural elevation of Building A. We'll see Building B is very similar, just slightly different in proportions. This is the proposed tree protection plan of the overall site. This is the proposed landscape plan for the overall site. This is the proposed landscape plan for the phase 2 connection to Walker's Green. With that, staff recommends approval of the Florida Logistics Center phase 1 and 2 major site plan application to construct 2 one-story, 46-foot-high warehouse and distribution facilities totaling 305,550 square feet, including grading of areas designated for future development within the Florida Logistics Center Plan District and associated infrastructure, with phase 2 including the connection to the Walker's Green development south of the site. A majority vote of the planning board members present and voting is required to approve the site plan. I did want to note that there was a couple conditions that were not included in the presentation. Those conditions are that the site plan approval letter will not be issued until the traffic impact analysis, or the TIA, process is completed and any required fees have been documented as paid. The second condition is that final approval will be granted once off-site improvements are provided for, either on the applicant's plans or on plans prepared by others and funded for construction. Thank you.
Is there any questions for staff? None?
Mr. Chair,
I just want to say those 2 conditions are in the staff report, so if you need to reference them, they're there.
Mr. Chair, please.
Yes.
Did you say that it's an error on page 2 of the existing future land use?
Yes, so it's
Is that a PD, what is that? You said tourist accommodation?
yeah, so I said there was an error there.
Oh, okay. I couldn't
Yeah, it's
spell-
supposed to be mixed use. If
Oh,
you look
mixed use.
directly in the table below it,
Okay.
it says future land use designation is mixed use.
Okay,
So that's the correct future land use.
all righty.
I did have
Any
a
other
question.
questions?
I'll leave it for the,
Mr. Lee?
Just because we're impacting a lot of wetland areas, so can staff confirm that there's just really a no net increase for stormwater runoff to other neighboring areas? There's no increase. Is that how the engineering plans are designed?
I would have to defer to the engineers on
that's
that
perfectly
question. Whether it's the applicant or the city engineers.
Okay.
We'll defer those to the project engineer.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute then. Yeah.
No other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Can we hear from the applicant?
Good evening, everyone. I'm not as tall as Emilio. For the record, Jessica Gal with Cobb Cole Law Firm, 1 Daytona Boulevard, Daytona Beach, Florida. Usually, it has been a while since between the rezoning and when we come back for the site plan. You can see this project is moving forward pretty quickly because I think we were here in October or November of last year for the
Yep.
rezoning for the PD, and it went to commission, I think, in December. So we are now here for the phase 1 site plan. I'll touch on the comments, but just general comments. If you guys remember on the rezoning level, the call out for the tourist accommodations, remember this used to be a mix of tourist accommodations, level 2 residential, mixed use, highway interchange. It was kind of a conglomerate of every land use we have in the city on this piece of property. Wrapped it all in as mixed use and reduced the entitlements by 90%. So that 6 million and 100,000 retail. When it was before the planning board, it also had a residential component in the PD agreement. The residents of Pelican Bay asked that that was removed during the rezoning process. We removed that completely, so there's no residential component on the site overall anymore. And the first phase here you can see is that 330,000 square feet, so it's entitled for 6 million. It's probably not going to fit that on the site at the end of the day with the uses. So you'll see a reduction even beyond that 90%. Beyond the phase 1 footprint that we're looking at here, the phase 2 connection, if you guys recall, Storch Law Firm on behalf of Walker's Green came to the planning board and talked through some access concerns. And so we worked with them and the city to phase the timing of that access so that we're not building a road to nowhere where trucks would accidentally go into Walker's Green before they're developed and cause any confusion. And then we also set up the PD to allow for the agricultural use, there's cows on the site, cattle, to remain in the non-developed areas. So that phase 2 future development footprint will be the home of happy cows for a while. Overall, you can see the floor area ratio is well below the requirements. We're well exceeding tree preservation, I think over 7,000 additional surplus trees in addition to the mitigation. And we're excited to see the industrial project move forward. On stormwater, great question. Yes, it complies with all of the city requirements. Chris can say that on the record if you need it from the engineer of record. This project also includes the stormwater required for the widening of Williamson in this corridor. And so the two conditions relating to offsite improvements and the traffic impact analysis. Normally you see at this site plan that we have a proportionate share agreement and we're paying the county for certain roadway improvements. Here, in lieu of that typical payment, we've set up a structure with county staff. It has to be approved by council, which is why there's that condition. That instead of that, we are giving them the area for their stormwater pond for that widening project. And the county, when they do that widening, will install the turn lanes and the driveway for this project. So that's why it's noted that that may be installed by others, so that our construction crews are not arguing with each other out there in the field when they're widening Williamson. So, here for questions.
Any questions?
You want to go first, Mr. Lee?
Go ahead.
Okay. This is a very massive project,
It is?
very impactful on the environment. And I find out what a specimen tree is and a replacement trees are. But I'm looking to find, you're saying that you're going to have 804 trees left.
8,000.
Big number.
A lot of trees.
You're going to have 8,000, okay.
I think 80% of the site remains open space and
So you're going to have 8,430 trees left in the replacement trees. You have 1,189 replacement trees.
that is just the required replacement trees that we're counting out of that 8,000. The 8,000 are remaining on site. They're not being removed. We're not taking out 7,000. It's just those 8,000 are staying. The city requirement is only 1,000 or so of those. So we've got 7,000 in addition to what the city requires.
Okay, that's good. What about the bald eagles that you found? What if
So
you,
there was an eagle nest. It was abandoned. We have gone through the proper process to document that. They actually contributed funding to a bald eagle education facility at the Marine Science Center to balance out even though the nest was not in use, for that removal, you balance out that in the permitting process. And that is a federal and state permitting that is complete.
you didn't mention any other species, gopher turtles?
That was the only endangered species reviewed. A gopher tortoise survey, 90 days before construction is the closest they can do. They'll do 100% gopher tortoise survey
Okay,
before they construct.
and you're gonna have, what, 50% of the wetland covered over?
There are approximately, it's under 50%, but wetland impacts on site. And as noted in the staff report, most of that is to provide areas for comp storage and the stormwater for the site. So the water is still going where it did in the past. It's just a design system that has more capacity than the natural system for treatment.
So we don't have to worry about the flooding, is that what you're saying?
And I'll have Chris say that.
Why don't you let the
Engineer?
engineer?
Yes, tell us about the flooding issue, because that's a major concern.
Sure.
Because when you take away, the wetlands, and you increase it somewhere else, please explain that to me.
Chris Rowley, 300 Interchange Boulevard. with Zevcon Associates. You're right. If you look at the site plan, you'll notice there's actually a lot of stormwater proposed with this site plan. So the top ponds that are there on the east side and south, those are just the stormwater ponds. That long, I like to call it the golf club pond, is all compensating storage for the floodplain impacts. And so we are not allowed to impact the floodplain more than what the site does now. So we calculate the storage that's there now, and we make sure that we provide the equal storage. And there's no stormwater that flows to that compensating storage pond. Like, it is a separate system that is strictly for flood compensation.
That's the reason that, that's the reason that it's a dry pond and it also has a liner in it.
So that actually it is going to be a wet pond. So we can dig it
Well,
down.
it's gonna be a retention pond, and that's what, with a liner in it. I'm assuming that the whole pond, or is it just the top ledge of it? It's gonna be
So it's
lined?
just not going to be as deep or as tall as the other ponds, but basically what it is it provides storage from what is the natural ground up to the flood elevation. But then we can dig it down below natural ground and just get the fill out of it. But there is going to be a liner proposed on site, but that's going to be on some of the wet ponds for this stormwater.
Because it only showed the liner in one spot.
It's on that whole, so it's on that whole south pond, and the reason for that is that
But it didn't show it, they just showed it up in the corner where the small pond up on the top.
I see it. So it's in two spots. So it's up in the northwest corner with that pond, and then it's also on the south pond. The reason for those liners is with the proximity to the wetlands. So we have to install those. Otherwise, the water within the stormwater ponds will draw down the wetlands, and it'll basically remove all the water from the wetlands, and we'll have to impact them and pay for mitigation. So it allows the wetlands to stay hydrated by adding that liner.
I know that the engineering on it, I was quite impressed. Folks did a good job on some of the reuse water and how it was bypassed with the existing utilities. I haven't seen that in a while,
Thank you.
but I think you did an excellent job. Is there any other questions for the?
Yeah, and I think you kind of answered the first one already. But just kind of to clear up the record, just because there's been a lot of detailed questions in here too, is just that there's no impact to surrounding areas. The intention is not to challenge engineering, obviously. It's just to make sure that the record's,
That's correct.
correct.
That's correct.
So, and on top of that, was that modeled post-construction or pre-construction, or was it both?
What model?
When you calculated the floodplain compensation storage, is that based on what's going to be there?
So what we do is we do a pre. So we go out there and we calculate what is the volume from the floodplain elevation to existing ground. What does it provide now?
Yeah.
Come up with a volume, and then we have to match that volume in post construction.
Okay. Perfect.
All right.
Thank you. And then the last thing I think was just, I know you have conceptual design approval by the St. John's Water Management, but has there been any other, have you guys already applied for environmental permitting already?
So we do have St. John's permit. So we have that permit. We also have DOT approved and Volusia County approved. So
Perfect.
this is actually our last approval.
Great.
Yep.
Those things have already been reviewed and nothing's needed to be come back.
Yeah, and this is not to add more
Yeah.
to it, but this site is reviewed by many jurisdictions because of the location. So we have to go to DOT, which they require 64 names or storms to be run with their site. So it's reviewed in great detail because they don't want us flooding 95, obviously. Volusia County, because Williamson's on the one side, they don't want us flooding Williamson. And then obviously then Daytona, and then also FEMA. So
Right.
we get a lot of reviews of the stormwater.
Yeah,
to
I
make
think
sure it's right.
this conversation comes up a lot about flooding, and that was the point of these questions, was so that people can see, like, there's a lot of review down
Yeah.
here, and a lot of this is looked at and planned for.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
I just want to add, those outside agency permits are required prior to the building permit. We can't hold up a site plan as we wait for those outside agency permits.
That makes sense. That's why I just thought it was, it's better for the record if they had them already, and they
Oh,
do.
yeah, it
So,
helps,
yeah.
but yeah.
Mr. Chair, please.
Yes, sir.
Explain to me, simple as you can, what happens when you remove or you build on a wetland? What it does to the surrounding environment that you live in, that we live in. When you take away that wetland from us, okay, what happens to the rest of the area or the county?
So from a stormwater perspective, from environmental perspective, what, all of it?
Well, you've identified that you're going to have room for the stormwater. However, the environmental impact, what happens when you take away wetlands? Because you're not going to, you can't replace wetlands, and there's got to be some impact on the environment. Tell me what happens.
So what we do is when we permit through St. John's, and this one actually is permitted through Army Corps as well, so it's got hit twice, but we pay into what's called a mitigation bank. And so for every wetland you impact, for every acre, you pay around $120,000 to that mitigation bank. And they take that money and use it to make much more valuable wetlands of much higher quality. So these wouldn't be considered valuable wetlands because they're surrounded by roads. They're, some of them are surrounded by uplands. There's development all around it. What they're doing is going out in Tiger Bay and creating wetlands out there, or getting rid of invasive species out there, and really making those wetlands pristine with that money that we pay to impact these wetlands.
Well, Tiger Bay's over here,
I understand.
and Williamson is over there.
Sure.
So I'm trying to understand how you're going to mitigate the loss of the wetlands from one area, but increase it over here. And where's the there's a tremendous environmental impact.
Mr. Robinson,
Yeah,
I will say that not all wetlands are equal.
Okay.
Some wetlands are higher quality, and those are the ones you really want to protect and preserve. And in this case, they're taking a wetland that isn't as higher quality, and they're going to be transferring that protection to our higher quality wetlands. And that's a process that through the St. John's review that they accept.
I understand
and they
that.
would prefer, yeah.
I understand that. However, if we look at the our approval of that corridor where Tiger Bay is, we're getting ready to build a tremendous amount of homes off of the LPGA ISB area, right? So that we're going to impact the wetland over there also. And what I'm looking at, what I'm thinking is like, okay, Williamson, where you are, is now low wetland or low quality because of the Williamson Boulevard and the surrounding constructions and build up around it. And we're going to mitigate the one over there in Tiger Bay to make it higher quality. But at the same time, we're having a lot of constructions, development on that side of LPGA and ISB that's going to affect the wetland. So eventually, in a few years, in 10, 20 years, the wetland that we're going to pristine and build up to a higher quality is going to be like the one over here at Williamson, to be a low quality also, because the effect of what we're doing to building up on Williamson is going to take effect over here. I love the project in terms of what it's going to do. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just looking at the environmental impact. And even though it sounds great, it's great for the community, great for jobs, but in the future, right, the same description that we're coming in here to apply to the low quality value of the of this area is going to eventually apply to that area. And eventually we're going to get rid of...
No, not necessarily. It doesn't work like that.
Okay.
It doesn't work like that. So,
I just want to, I want to clarify, just for the educational piece, in order to have the mitigation count, in order for the state and the federal government to say, yes, you can offset these low impact quality wetlands by paying here, it has to be in a protected mitigation bank. And so when you establish a mitigation bank, there are very strict size requirements on a minimum acreage and allocation of wetlands in that bank that does not include any areas that will be developed in the future. And so when they're looking at
I understand about the permitting process and the agreement with all the 70, 80, 100 departments that are going to say yes, yes, yes. They don't live here. Okay? The guys that approve it, the government and all, they don't live here. And before Williamson, where you are now with a low value. At one point, it was a high value because there was no surrounding constructions and development. I'm making a note, and I'd like you to consider that in the future, 10, 20 years down the road, when that area starts to build up and shift growth. We all grow. And when we grow on that side of the ISB corridor, because LPGA is just about finished now, that area that is so pristine and protected is going to become low value, and it's going to lose its protection, and it's going to become another low value, and consequently, we're going to be losing our wetlands.
Yeah.
I just that's what I'm saying.
Mr.
I'm not opposed to the project, but we ought to take note, because we're a planning committee, to look at 5, 10 years down the road or for the future generations. I am going to, vote for the project because of the, everything that goes along with it. But I want you to understand the impact on our community and the environment and how it affects our community and the domino effect that it has when we decide that we're going to approve something and we are the planning board. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Robinson, that I'm going to answer for the engineer. This has been happening for numerous years, moving, these spots to another to help the wetlands. And we've already started building over there. And that's the reason when the developments come up before us over in that area, that there's things that they're going to be moving around, and we're definitely going to protect the areas over there as they build. But they have been doing this for a long period of time.
I agree, Mr. Chair. And exactly, that's the point I'm trying to make, is that we've been doing this for such a long time. They've been building for a long time. And when we look further down the road, right, what are we leaving our future generations?
Welcome to Florida.
Welcome to Florida.
Well, I would just like to say that, first off, the spirit of what you're saying, 100% I agree with. But I don't agree with kind of the semantics of what's being discussed, because just because something's surrounded by development doesn't make it a less valuable wetland area. That's not, and we're boiling it down to just one issue of it being surrounded by roadways. And I'd much prefer to work within the system we have here, where people are funding. I mean, this is a significant amount of money that they're having to pay to the state and to the county to be able to improve wetlands in areas where they're already being preserved, in areas where they're going to be protected and kept. Those are things for us to consider, obviously, as the planning board, as we go forward. Like, if something's being built adjacent to one of those preserved areas, then at that time, we should look at that, see how it's impacting that, and consider that at that time. But that's not what's happening here right now. And so I think the fact that they've complied with the law, they've followed what's required of them, they've donated to those funds so that those areas can be preserved and built up even better for our future children, that's what I think is important here.
Mr. Chair.
I just want to say something real quick. I don't want to disregard the conversation about wetland impacts, but what I do want to suggest is that you guys take a closer look during the PD rezoning process, because this site was actually entitled for 6 million square feet of industrial and 100,000 square feet of office space. So from an intensity standpoint, I would take a look at some of that preemptively during the PD rezoning process.
It's a great point.
What I'm showing, I'm pointing out, is the pattern of development. And, it's not about so much semantics, but the historical activities in terms of planning. And we should not just say, oh, we'll just leave it and we'll get to it, in 5 years or 10 years. As a planning board, part of our responsibility is to look into the future, right? To make sure that what is here now is somewhat there for our kids or even us, ourselves. And that's what I want you to look at, even as a planning board. That's what we need to be looking at. What happens in 5 years or 10 years when the growth, and we are going to grow, okay? And it's not just the roads is going to be there, but other development, and stuff. just like it is on the LPGA. Remember, that was wetland, that was swamp. Just like in Deltona, that was swamp. And we filled it in and invite everybody from up north, welcome to Florida, right? And now there is a loss of wetlands, and it does affect our community. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
40% of our entire county is preserved in perpetuity forever as of today.
Well, and
climbing.
Mr. Chair, if I may. Yeah, I agree. I'm listening to the conversation, and I think we're thinking here now, not then and there. And I think that is something that I'm looking at, and what Mr. Robinson's saying is that we need to look into the future. And 50 years from now, somebody else will be saying the same thing. Well, you know what? Let's move down the road. Let's send them all to the land or send them somewhere else. So I understand. I understand we have to build. We have to do some. The growth is good. It's healthy. At the same time, I think we still need to look at the overall perspective of our city. And I think that's one of the responsibilities of the planning board is to look not just in one area, but how are we looking? LPGA, you're right, was all wetland. I mean, the houses out there built on wetlands. And so that has been, of course, probably moved down a little further down the street to preserve a little higher. But then they build further down because now, again, to the ISB and LPGA, we've planned and we've approved a whole bunch of stuff to be built in those corridors. And then even across closer to the I-4. I mean, there's stuff being built up everywhere. We have to have a balance, and I think that's what we're looking for. We want to make sure that, and there's a balance. My question or my comments was, did somebody go out and count these trees and then looking at it?
It's a very expensive process.
That was a job. And then the total specimen trees, the preserved ones, were they all in one area or were they scattered? I mean,
They're spread out throughout.
okay, so when they're building, when they're development, they will make sure that those trees are preserved. That's correct?
Yeah, the way that the code is set up, depending on the size of your site, there is a percentage of specimen
Okay.
trees that you have to preserve.
I have to keep. Okay. All right. Yeah, it's an interesting one.
I'm good, yes.
Any other questions? Are there any speakers? John, have a speaker on any of these?
No.
He says no.
I ask for a motion.
Okay, so I make a motion that we approve agenda item 4A, major site plan approval DV 2025428. I believe that's correct, right? With the conditions that's listed under the recommendations.
Second.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That's a 6-0 or 5-0, 6-0. Yeah, thank you. We will move to item 4B.
Item 4B, Tree Preservation Land Development Code Text Amendment, DEV 2025, 6-64, wait,
Yes.
You got it.
Yes. -642.
okay, that's 642. Legislative hearing.
Good evening, Danielle Paddock, Senior Planner. So this is a request by the Growth Management and Planning Department, Planning Division, to amend Articles 4, 6, and 11 of the Land Development Code to modify the requirements for landscaping, tree preservation, and mitigation. So to just go over the specific changes. So the first one is Article 4, which is a scenic thoroughfare overlay district. The proposed change is to remove the language that encourages removing pine trees. So right here, you can say save hardwood species as priority before pines, and then allow the removal of pines in favor of planting new hardwood species. So just deleting those out. And then adding a allowance to allow palm trees in a scenic thoroughfare overlay buffer because it's allowed in different parts of our code. Just specifying you can also do it here, but limited to 25%, just like in our landscape code. The next one is Article 6, 6.4. So we have perimeter buffers and we also have landscape buffers, and they're required in different scenarios. So if you have a perimeter landscaping strip, allowing that to be credited towards a perimeter buffer. So this is getting really in the weeds here. But basically, the code right now only allows the perimeter landscaping strip associated with a vehicle use area to be credited towards a perimeter buffer. So we would like to change that to allow all your perimeter landscape strips to be credited towards the perimeter buffer, so that way you're not doubling up. So it makes it easier on the applicant, it makes it easier on everyone. The next one is to just like specify the palm tree regulation in this section is for the requirements of this section, because we have the specific regulations that we're adding in the other sections. So this is the tree preservation, section 6.15. This one is for the retention of existing tree canopies, so preserving the trees. This is specifying that all existing trees, including palm trees, except historic and nuisance trees, that's been in the code, with a minimum DBH of 2½ inches, may be used in meeting this requirement, so long as they are existing trees to be preserved. So this is just encouraging more tree preservation and also clarifying that you can count palms, because we have a lot of sites with a lot of existing native palm trees. We want to be able to count that if they're actually preserving trees. So this is the specimen trees, which you guys just discussed a little bit with the previous project. So what we would like to do is change the exempt trees from pine trees, which we would like you to preserve instead, to palm trees, to exempt those. So the logic behind this is that pine trees, they're all over the city, this county, everywhere. They're native trees, they're good hardwood trees. They last forever, especially like the slash pines, longleaf pines. And then palm trees, they just kind of like grow up to be 12 inches. And they never change size. But if they're 12 inches, you have to count them as a specimen tree, and they grow like weeds. They're everywhere. So it can be really burdensome to a site if you have to count the palm trees as specimen trees. And instead, we would like to encourage you to keep the pine trees, which are actual hardwood trees and not basically grass, which is what palm trees are. So if they're existing, preserve them, but you don't have to count them as specimen trees, because they just like, they're good, but they're not that good. So, and this is a specific scenario. This is Strickland Range Road and Williamson. It's the JLM property. So they propose to preserve all these trees along Strickland Range Road and on Williamson as well. They're all nice, tall pine trees, and we wanted them to do this. So that's basically what we're after, is to encourage more of this, because we have a lot of areas with a lot of pine trees like this. So that's more or less the intent of these specific changes, is to encourage tree preservation, specifically pine trees, and then kind of like ease the regulations around palm trees. So this is specifically for the replacement and mitigation standards, just clarifying how it's applied and when. So like specimen trees, if you do the math as the code is written right now, it's really burdensome to even take out the existing specimen trees, because it can be read that if you're allowed to take out the specimen tree, because as we discussed previously, well, not me, someone else discussed it, it's a percentage of specimen trees you have to keep on site. Even if you're allowed to take out those other specimen trees, if you read the code as is, you have to replace each one of those specimen tree inches with 2 inches. And that's a little bit burdensome because the code allows you to take those specimen trees out. So this is just clarifying, if it's existing, it's just a 1-for-1. If it's a tree you're supposed to save and you're not allowed to get rid of it, it's 1-for-2. So you will be like basically clarifying the mitigation. And then it also adds a definition of what a replacement tree is, because we don't have one, and it makes it very confusing to other parts of our code, where replacement tree is used as like a standard. So what is a replacement tree? So that's this definition. And then it's also clarifying that existing trees on site with a minimum DBH of 2½ inches in excess of the minimum required, because we have a minimum required on every site. If you have anything in excess, you can use that towards mitigation. So yeah, just basically clarifying all the stuff that we've kind of been doing in practice anyway, and just adding it to our code and making it more clear for everyone involved. So with that, staff recommends approval of the request to amend Articles 4, 6, and 11 of the Land Development Code to modify the requirements for landscaping, tree preservation, and mitigation. And a majority vote by the planning board members present voting is required to approve the request. And I did want to mention that this is just the start of us starting to change our landscape and tree preservation code. This is just like the major stuff that's been a consistent problem. We will probably be back with like other parts of the code that we would like to update because there's a lot of conflicting codes, very confusing. So we just want to clear that up for everyone.
Is there any questions for staff?
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Mr. Bill.
I have a kind of a question. Are you saying that this is to make pine trees versus palm trees or hardwood oak better, or what's the purpose?
No, the purpose is really to encourage the preservation of pine trees because our code kind of discourages it at the moment.
That's right.
But we would like to encourage the preservation of that, and that's basically what this is. And then kind of not requiring as much preservation of palm trees, but if you are preserving them, you can still count them towards the other requirements of the code. So not getting rid of them entirely, but just encouraging pine trees.
But I thought that the pine trees was one of those contributors to, brush fires, and when there's a fire, the pine trees
We
are
have our
like,
fire-wise standards that we have in the code already, so those regulations are already met. It has like the distance requirements and other things. So they're still good trees, they're native trees. Every other municipality in this county really requires you to preserve pine trees. We just for some reason did not. And we really should because, like I said, they're native, they're good.
I have a comment and a question. First of all, pine trees are native, but the only bad thing about pine trees, if you go around them, you disturb them just the least little bit, if you're going to save them, you're going to be required to rope the areas off so many feet away from the trees. If you don't, you might as well take them down. That's old school, and it's a standard been in Florida for forever. If you want to keep a specimen tree, I have a problem with a palm tree being a specimen tree.
Right.
I'm from old school. Because just as soon as you say it's a specimen tree, and if you take down one, you've got to plant two. Every hotel around here plants palm trees.
That's right, yeah.
And that's their getaway, or they're out without having some of the more decorative trees that I think that our code should have a list of to be using. That's pretty much it. But it's something to keep in advisement that I think that the city should really look at. You can talk to your arborist, and they'll tell you the root system of pine trees is very delicate. If you just run equipment over, you don't even have to dig it up, they will die.
Yeah, also if you end up putting like a parking space next to a pine tree, they will cover your car.
They will cover your car with or
But,
something.
It's a sacrifice we make to keep these trees around. Yes, so we do still allow the palm trees, 100% palm trees on the beach side. So that is still allowed. That's almost encouraged over there because they tend to last where there's salt spray exposure. So that's still in the code. And I did want to mention that one of our future text amendments will be adding an actual list of like trees, like specific specimen trees and then trees that should be planted. That's just something that's going to take longer to work through.
My last comment. All of my neighbors where I live over on Beachside, just a couple blocks off the ocean and next to the river. Everybody's planting exotic palms. The frost did not do them well.
Right.
Just about all of them are died.
Yeah, you found out what was actually native around
Now,
here.
when I planted my tree, everybody's planting palms, I planted a big oak tree. in the center of the yard.
It's doing great, isn't it?
And it's doing great. I love it. So with that comment, is there any questions for staff?
Yeah, I just, kind of like Vern was saying, I don't share the same opinion about pine trees that the staff seems to share. So I'm just kind of curious, like, what's driving this decision? Like,
Yeah,
did it
it's-
come from comparing us to other cities, municipalities, or is this a direction from the city commission? I'm just trying to
No,
understand
this is
it.
actually coming from experience, and also I'm the one that reviews the majority of our tree preservation plans, and it's actually a lot better to preserve the pine trees instead of the palm trees, because like I said, they're native, and every other municipality does require them to be specimen trees. so everyone who does an application here is almost expecting them to be. So yeah, it just makes it easier to be more consistent with the surrounding communities. This is the only place I know of that discourages pine trees. So yeah, but they're good hardwood trees. They are actually pretty strong too, so they can withstand a lot. But and
They're great lightning rods.
they get very tall, but better them than you.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
Florida pine is notorious for the older built homes that were built probably in the 50s and my house included. The Florida pine, it gets harder with age as you cut it. When I put the first addition on my house, I couldn't drive a nail. I had to pre-drill the holes with a bolt. It was so hard. Very structurally, especially as they get older.
Yeah. The other thing really driving is just what's in this area. So a lot of these sites, they're full of pine trees, and like that is the only tree that they really have. So we would like to kind of encourage more of that.
We want to save
conservation.
what's existing.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
yeah.
that's, and
Now that makes
by-
sense.
Yeah, and by not
And it's
doing
less
that,
impact
they'd have
on
to
the-
clear them out because they wouldn't be able to
Exactly.
count them.
Because
Yeah, like what I was showing on Strickland Range Road, like that whole site was pine trees. So
isn't that pre-planted, some of those?
yeah, a lot of them are from the silviculture industry that used to be around here, but they've grown and
Yeah,
they're basically just their own little forests now. So
absolutely. Is there any questions?
John?
Oh, John, I'm sorry. I seen you over there. I thought you was asleep.
That's what I have.
Okay, I'll just call you Edith Shelley.
Okay.
Edith always did that. John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue. I've been pushing this for like 40 years. Several years ago, probably maybe 30 or so, the city decided that the pine tree would break in a storm, and therefore they were dangerous. That's why they decided to get rid of them. However, they are just everywhere out west, all right? And they literally clear cut everything off a piece of property, including the pines, and you're left with nothing. I would rather, if you saw that picture, that they keep that around every single property. Because one, it will cost them zero money to keep those pines. They don't have to plant anything. Two, they don't have to put in irrigation because they're already established, all right? Third, it gives you height. Everything, if you look at any new development, everything is rooftop. They put these things in, and often they don't grow, all right? We have magnolias on Seabreeze with Wells Fargo. It's been there now 23 years, and they've grown almost a foot, all right? So when we replace the trees with, let's say, a 3 or 4 foot diameter with a 4 caliper tree, you're losing a canopy of maybe 150, 200 feet width with a canopy that maybe is 4 feet wide. And it will remain 4 feet wide for our lifetime, all right? When we do calipers rather than canopy, we're not doing apples and oranges there, all right? We need to do apples to apples and oranges to oranges. So if we're clearing out oak trees, all right, that canopy of an oak tree is probably 100 feet wide or 150 feet wide for a really large specimen tree. So when you replace that huge canopy with this little ball that they put in, of a 4 caliper, you put in less than 1% of what you're taking out. And it'll take another 200 years for that little oak tree they put in to get the size of the one you're taking out. So we're losing, as you know, the ability to suck up all of that water. And if you've heard about flooding over the last couple of years, that's part of the problem. We're taking out trees that hold all that water. We're taking out, and if you've heard about carbon dioxide, if you've had biology, you know that the trees take our carbon dioxide, turn it into oxygen. There are all these benefits that we're not getting. So I'm glad you're doing this. And secondly, I can't wait till you look at the rest of your landscaping, because we invariably lose it all within a year of a new development. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments?
I did just want to make a comment, I guess. It's really for like Dennis. You know, when I read it, it did seem a little complex in how this is determined for properties. And I do have a concern where it's just not evenly or consistently applied. And that's really more of like consistency between enforcement, like code enforcement versus planning, and the confusion that might, you know, create. I guess I just want to voice that concern. I was going to ask that and have you guys maybe demonstrate it, but staff seem very confident that they've been doing this and that they've really been applying this really the way it is here now. We're just lining up our code to match our practice, which is a smart thing. So,
You know, and the one thing about the pine trees, I'll you know, and John was making a comment that, you know, about 40 years ago, rumor has it, and I've only been here for 17 years with the city, but rumor has it is that we had a landscape architect that was working for the city who had a personal grudge against pine trees and modified our land development code specifically to take it out on pine trees. Wow. And that's kind of where we see this. So a lot of the landscape codes that we see in the other areas, other parts of Volusia County and really Central Florida that I've seen, we don't see this kind of restriction of pine trees that our code would have. So this kind of just corrects everything.
yeah, and the fact that you guys looked at that, I think is important, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, another thing, it depends on the zones. This zone here's perfect for pine trees and naturally palms. You go on the other side of the river or different places in Florida, it's oak trees and just, pine is a good tree, but it also needs to have a certain amount of protection. You know, I don't think, you know, whenever you do building permits, once you're getting a final for each individual house, landscaping has to be approved. And whatever vegetation you have on your plans, that's what you have to go by. So I think that there is a certain amount of, and that goes through the building department on their plans. Is there any other comments? Could I have a motion?
Okay, I make a motion that we approve LDC text amendment, tree preservation, DV 2025-642.
Second.
All those opposed?
Those in favor.
All in favor?
The count is.
All in favor? We have
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have a 6 count, and it passed 6 piece. Passed 6-0. I knew I'd get it right sooner or later.
I get someone to oppose it.
We will now move to item 5.
Downtown Blue Road.
Well, that might have,
There you go. Yeah. What do you want to do downtown Blue Road?
oh, other business, oh, okay. How about the downtown Barhoo? Is anybody on that? Do we have someone?
I'm not sure. You know if we have anybody on the downtown Blue Road?
No,
We do not.
I don't
didn't
believe,
think
I
so.
think
Oh,
it
we were
was,
looking to get
I
somebody
think
to.
it was Mr. Newman, Jamie.
It was
Jamie.
So we'll need a replacement for the, and I think we talked about that before.
We
That
did.
wanted people to consider doing. And now we do only have 6 board members currently. We are missing 1 board member, so it kind of puts us at a little bit of a disadvantage. That's zone 2, correct?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna get on Ken.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I just saw an application come in for zone 2, so hopefully we can get that replaced soon. So if we don't bring anybody on board to be able to cover that now, maybe when that person comes on board, we can discuss it then when we do have the full board.
Okay, Midtown redevelopment.
I did not meet with him.
Do you have any comments?
No, no comment.
Okay. Beachside redevelopment. Look around, who's on that? No, that's me. No, you know, the development, they have a lot of good meetings. You know, things that they want to do. I think probably one of the big items that that I've seen is the covering on the control boxes, the electrical boxes. They gave them certain designs to pick out, and they've chosen one. And so I think it's a great idea. It's expensive. I was surprised at the cost of it, but they do, and during Bike Week, the downtown, they've tried to do things, and getting them accomplished is something else in the city. Especially with the CRAs. There's a lot of discussion. I heard the mayor would like to take some of the CRA money for affordable housing. That was, I think that's going to be brought up in the commission meetings here in the near future. But we have a great downtown. I made a comment in the commission, about spring break. It's all well and fine, but I asked the commission, what would you rather have? Spring break on the beach or a $300 million hotel? And one or the other, they don't coincide. So that's my comment on beach. You don't have anybody for the Housing Authority?
Scott, did you get contacted on that? I
didn't, and it's possibly sent me an email, I just missed it.
Okay. I'll follow up on that. I forwarded your information over to Community Development, and they're supposed to be reaching out to you to give you the information that you're going to need.
You'd be good on this. Yes, that would, for all his knowledge and everything. Is there any public comments? John?
Mr. Public.
Alex, 413 North Grandview Avenue. I think it was last year I spoke to you all about the Daytona Grand. It's right in front of my house. As I sit on my porch and I look, I can see right over the houses in front of me to the Daytona Grand, and all I see is a bunch of air conditioning right across the front of the building. As you know, if you walk past it, you saw this sea of electrical boxes. I think there are 23 of those big, green, ugly electrical boxes sitting on A1A, which is not enticing whatsoever. Next to that is their huge fire suppression system. It's just these pipes that are sitting up.
The backflow and for the fire suspension.
Looks ugly. It's like 15 feet wide and 10 feet high, of pipes going like this. So to me, that's not, I don't know if you all remember years ago, we had this fight of garbage cans being in the front of the hotels. We had to circle them, all right? Now we're replacing the ugly garbage cans with all other kind of garbage, all right? After that, there is an apartment building down A1A on Driftwood, all right, that's built literally, I think, 4.5 feet from the sidewalk and 5 feet from either side, all right? It is literally the worst landscaping I think I've seen, all right? But they have all their garbage sitting out in the front. All their accoutrements that are normally hidden inside the building are now sitting in front of it. So all those boxes and whatnot are there for everyone to see. Well, on University, they're remodeling a hotel, adding 2 stories. It is bland. There is no, because I thought you had in your code that there had to be some kind of break in the structure and the number of windows and the appearance of the building. It's painted, I think, 3 colors, all very bland, dull. It's a very light gray, a very light tan, and a very light green. But it's almost 80% wall. And the ugliest part is facing A1A. Is there a way that, and I know it exists because I've seen it at the county, that when they have these presentations, you can see actually what it's going to look like in real time when it's done. Not just the little squares with this is where the bathrooms are gonna be, this is where the driveway is gonna be, but an actual visual. Because I know they did that with the Daytona Grand. They took you from the bridge and you drove down, you saw the hotel, you saw where all the windows are gonna be, et cetera, et cetera. If you could see that, because Beachside, and I've been hitting the county, it's our prime location, our moneymaker. We can't keep screwing it up, pardon my language, fouling
Thank
it
you,
up.
John.
So please pay attention to it. Thank you.
Okay. Staff comments. Anybody would like to make any other comments before we adjourn?
Well, I've got some for staff comments. I provided you guys, we had a discussion last week, or last meeting.
Yes.
Vern, you were asking about some of the stormwater plans that you wanted to see. So I said that I would provide an entire site plan for you guys to take a look at to see what it is that we actually have as part of the site plan. Because we don't usually provide you the entire site plan, because there's a lot of information in there that just really, it's too much information to be able to provide. We've gone through this with the planning board in the past. Planning board instructed us, do not give us all of these sheets. We do not need all of these sheets. They wanted to see a general layout of the plan showing parking. They wanted to see landscaping and building elevations, which is what we would usually be providing to you. Now, I know, Vern, you say you want to see the stormwater, and I appreciate that. And I will tell you, we do have our professional engineers that do review the stormwater, and it gets submitted. Well, I can personally provide you copies of some of that information so that you can see it, unless the rest of the board wants to see that. And I will also say that all of these plans are available online. We digitally, we do electronic submittals of all of these, so nobody is giving us paper copies of anything. Everything is done electronically. So you do have access. If anybody wants to see anything that's submitted to the city on an application, you do have the ability to go online, go to the planning page, and look at the project and open up everything that's been submitted, including the stormwater plans. You can review everything that's been submitted for that and see what the staff comments were based on that plan. So I have that available to you, but I can provide.
It's like with me, and this was a good one to start off with. The reason I asked for it is, there was some comments that I had with staff in a commission meeting about the reuse. And, and I was told that all new plans that goes through the process, they're required to put in the piping in to make it available to whatever they're building. This particular plan has it on there. This set of plans I was really impressed with. It's very good engineering, a lot of unique things, just this small project. But I would be happy if, this is a lot of work.
And my staff really gave me a hard time.
Yes.
I understand. If I don't know what the other members.
I have a comment. I was thinking about this, after our last meeting and especially once I received the packet. And I really just, for me, I'm really more about where duties and responsibilities lie and where they should lie. And the review of these documents, the review of this stuff lies with staff. Our review is really to make sure that they've done the parts that they were supposed to do. So we're kind of accountability mechanism to the process. And, we can do that through asking questions like we did today and clarifying things if need be. I don't see the need to see this level of detail and paperwork. Number one, because I think it's kind of burdensome on staff to provide on everyone, especially considering most of the time it's either not going to get looked at or it's going to be discarded pretty quickly after being looked at. Maybe I'm a little biased because I do know where to find the stuff online, having worked for the city, but I just don't think it's necessary, and I just don't think it's our place to be challenging the engineering. We want to set a record straight. We want to clarify a record here. And if there's something that somebody's being cagey or trying to avoid answering, then maybe that allows us to continue something and ask for more detailed, paperwork if we need that to review or look at.
Yeah, and we won't bring an application for a site plan forward unless the engineering has been reviewed and
Right.
approved by our city staff, the professional engineers that are reviewing that. So we wouldn't bring that forward. So if a question did come up on stormwater, that's why they have the applicants here with the applicant's engineer. So if there's questions on that, they can address any question that you may have on that. But we, as staff, have had all of our questions already answered, and they've addressed all of those. So if you have questions, that's why they're here to answer those questions.
The reason that I asked for this, not that I'm challenging anything, I know the building board is probably better than yourself, even though that you were in code enforcement for a number of years. I was more concerned, or just curious, not concerned, with the reuse water and the storm water. I wanted to see, the runoff on this particular area. This is an unusual piece. And that's the reason I asked for it. Do I want to see every set of plans and go through them? No. I think if I wanted to see them, in our pre-meeting, I could have a set of plans and I could go through it and wouldn't have to bother the member, the other.
And like I offered to all of the planning board members, if you have any questions about anything when you get your package, contact me and I can supplement any information that you have or provide any of that information to you. So we can continue to do what we were doing before, and if you have any questions, then we're here to give you any more information or answer any questions that you have.
Dennis, is it possible for you to go ahead and give that website and so forth, and how to navigate into that area if we needed to? So
Yeah, and I'll provide something at the next meeting,
Yeah.
but I'll tell you generally, you go to the city's website, to the planning page, and search projects,
I've already.
and that's
Okay.
where you're
okay.
able to pull everything
So
up.
there's
But
no special sign-in, login?
You would,
and
you would
okay.
use that DEV number, and you
Yeah.
put that in, and every document that has been submitted to the
Okay.
city
That's
would be
simple enough.
available to you.
I'd like to see earlier than
They're changing by the minute though.
when I get it on a
I'll tell you,
Friday.
the next planning board meeting is gonna be a very large agenda, and it is going to include Avalon. That'll be presented to the city commission, so, to the planning board and then to the city commission. And that is just one of the items that's gonna be coming forward. So, we're gonna try to get it done as quickly as we can and get it out, and we always try to get it to you as soon as we can. Sometimes we're just unable to do that because we've got a lot of moving parts to putting these all together. So we try, and sometimes we don't always follow through, but the way it used to work when I first started working here is we would put these in the mail, and we would put them in the mail on Friday to you, and sometimes you wouldn't be getting it till Monday or Tuesday. Now what happened was they changed the post office, that everything goes down to Lake Mary now. So there's like even a more delay on that. So we said, we're not gonna do that, and staff volunteered to actually hand deliver these packages to make sure that they at least go out on Friday. So that's what you see. You see staff running around the city and delivering these.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to note, because we've talked about kind of the evidence that you guys would consider for things like a site plan, that is a quasi-judicial hearing that we're having here. And so your decision has to be based upon the evidence you receive at this hearing. So if you look at something separate and apart and that influences your decision, you should present that to the board as part of the discussion before we take a vote on that particular item. Because the things that you need to consider in making your decision should be based upon the evidence that's presented at the hearing, not something outside of the hearing.
No, I received, somebody sent me something on Facebook. I didn't respond to it because, first of all, I didn't want to accept it because then they would have access to my Facebook account, so to say. I thought that when somebody wants to contact, they should send you something, or they should send it to everybody, as a member of the board, shouldn't they? Instead of,
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about. If
No,
a member
somebody-
of the public tried to reach out to
Yeah.
you for something,
Yeah, on Facebook, I'm not going to answer that.
I wouldn't answer it, but
Because
that's just
if I
me.
accept it, then they become access to my Facebook, So I didn't answer it, even though I don't know what they wanted to say, but I thought they were supposed to,
If somebody wanted to reach out to you, they can contact staff. Staff has your email addresses, and we'd be able to provide that to them so they can send you an email.
Okay.
If that happened, and it happens every once in a while, and you'll see that those emails will come through, but it doesn't happen very often, but that's that would be the correct process for them to be able to reach out to you, not through social media.
Yeah, I didn't want to respond to it.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to tell them, say, hey, call Tanzak, you know, but I was kind of scary.
You'd be surprised at the people that come up to me that just ask questions. I kind of stopped. I said, come to the board meeting or, you know, or ask City Hall for an answer. I don't have answers for anybody.
And I did like your definitions in the specimen and the replacement trees. Because when I was reading this report, I'm like, what is a specimen tree? What is a placement tree? And then I got to this, and it's like, oh, I had a better understanding of it. Some of the stuff I didn't really understand in terms of this big, thick. I didn't know what this was. Numbers. I like numbers, but this was just over the top.
Tree.
Appreciate
Okay, is there
it.
any
Good
other
work.
comments
Good work.
for this meeting?